Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. It is April the 1st. Just bear with me one moment here while I make sure that our YouTube channel comes online. Looking over at the corner here to make sure that it's sending. For some reason, it was turned off when I kicked it on the stream. There it goes. All right. So if you're just joining us, welcome to the program. I'm not an April Fool's guy. That may surprise you guys. I'm kind of not a BS anything kind of guy. It never really appealed to me. I don't want anyone to pinch me on St. Patrick's Day. I might hit you right in the face. I don't need to tell people when my birthday is. I don't expect a bunch of happy birthdays. And outside of watching my 5-year-old really love a Chinese knockoff whoopee cushion that he got for Christmas, practical jokes, other jokes, just not really my flavor. Especially in light of what happened this week. We had a mask off moment yesterday. And that is the title of the program. We're going to have a mask off moment today. So allow me to tell you, if you're listening later on, if you are a consumer of somebody who, if you're listening on Spotify, if you're listening on iHeartRadio, or if you're on Apple, it may have already happened. And I'm going to encourage you to go watch the Megyn Kelly show, which I never do because I don't really care what Megyn Kelly has to say. Today's going to be a mask off moment for a lot of people. I'm going to put the bottom line up front for you because this is what we're going to cover in today's show. We're going to cover that the establishment has exposed themselves. And they did so in a really horrifically graphic way. The husband of Kristi Noem, who was our DHS secretary, who embarrassed herself, embarrassed the Trump administration, embarrassed Donald Trump himself by saying things under oath that were probably true, which you can't do. Her husband came out or was exposed yesterday as a weird, perverted bimbo wannabe, had some sort of sexual fetish about dressing himself up like a lady, paying people money to watch him do that sort of thing. Dan Bongino, the former deputy director of the FBI, the reason that I told my story publicly, the person who convinced me personally to come and start talking, the reason why I have a podcast, I suppose, came after Tom Massey yesterday, and Tom Massey did what I am so proud that he did. He shared a couple little tidbits in there, which are going to be relevant later on today. They are the foundational groundwork of what's going to happen on the Megyn Kelly show. So we're going to talk about this mask off thing. It's the George Carlin joke. It's a big club and you're not in it. Rings more true today than maybe ever for me. And I hope so for you. And the other funny thing is that you're going to find out that a lot of people are not ready for that. They can't handle it. There's a specific reason why this program focuses on what I call uncomfortable truths. It doesn't mean that everything I say is true. I believe it to be true. I say it to be true. It's all in good faith. I definitely don't believe in coming out and trying to present some information that I know to be false in order to convince you of something. But it doesn't mean that I'm infallible by any means. But the mask off moment is that most of our establishment, most of our media, they do that. We know that instinctively, intuitively. We have that sense. And then it turns out sometimes they confirm it for us. And yesterday was one of those moments. And when it comes to sexual perversion and the feigned outrage and the pearl clutching that goes on both sides of the aisle, that's when you know. That's when they really give it to you. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about birthright citizenship. We're going to talk about the federal judges basically being they are the buffer between the thing that you thought you were going to get and the bullshit that the politicians sling to you in promise format. And even when they get it done, even when they actually get their agenda done and it gets stopped, everybody has plausible deniability. And that should be a mask off moment for you as well. Let's start off talking about something that is so simple. It's so easy. It's water. It might be the simplest thing in the world that you can do for your health. So I'd encourage you guys, if you don't have water filtration, to check out my friends over at Cove Pure. We have one sitting up in the upstairs bathroom of the house that we're living in. My kiddos get access to it. This is their water purifier. It removes 99.9% of contaminants. It gets rid of everything that isn't water, basically PFAs and microplastics and pharmaceutical residue, fluorides, all that. There's a multi-stage filtration. I think it's 4 stages of filtration. I've put in the filters so I know what they look like. They last for a very long time, which is nice. Some of them last for as long as 24 months, depending on your use cycle. And then you've got all this nice push button control. It's a really handy little unit. There's no plumbing involved. So you don't have to go and wire something in or drill holes in your countertop. It's great for renters. It's great for people in an RV, etc. You get hot water, cold water, lukewarm water at the push of a button. That's nice. You get preset sizes so you can push it and then you can keep doing things. If you're anything like me or my wife, when you're in the kitchen or you're trying to do something like that, you're doing one thing, but you're always doing something else. If you could leave the water while it's filling up to go do something else for that 12 or 15 or 25 seconds, man, you need that time. That's enough time to throw something in the microwave or do whatever else. Many of us use that time, and that's really nice because if you know, hey, this is a 12-ounce water bottle, beep, I've got a preset for 11, good to go. I think 12 is actually built in. It's really nice. Push button, keeps track of how much water and fluid you're drinking. These are all things that are going to help your health. And when you guys are not feeling great or you're not keeping up with your New Year's Eve resolutions, your New Year's resolutions to try to get healthy, water might be the easiest thing you guys can do. All right, you're going to get $200 off when you go to covepure.com/KYLE. You probably saw a link on the show description. You're going to see a link on the screen a moment ago. Cove, COVEPURE.com, covepure.com/KYLE. Make sure you're getting the discount that we are offering there, $200 limited time, link in the show description as usual. And you guys will also find a link to all of our sponsors for the month. That should be at the top or just below the lead sponsor for the day. I appreciate all of our sponsors. I appreciate you guys supporting them. And even when you hit me up in the comments and say, hey, what about the discount? Did it work? I will follow up with all of our sponsors. That's what we do here. So thank you for joining us. Let's get into today's program starting now. And you guys will have to bear with me. I'm fighting a dry cough, and I'm going to do my best to keep it off the microphone. I've gotten pretty good at doing that, but I'm just letting you know up front in case it just sneaks up on me. Sometimes it does. One of the things that I actually, here, look over on my shoulder over here. If you guys look on the screen, if you're watching, you can see this. There's a fin. Some of you guys don't know what's going on back there in my background. There's a fin over my left shoulder. And that little display that I put together for myself, yeah, it was kind of I was serving my own interests. That is a fin that I actually used in PJ NDoc. It's one of my actual fins from the actual PJ NDoc, and I may or may not have kept on. I kept the snorkel that I used going through PJ NDoc, and those are the dive bubble that I was awarded when I finished dive school. That's the mask that I actually wore at dive school, NDSTC in Panama City. One of the things that I learned in going through dive school and got dive training was the ability to control coughing, sputtering, choking. It's really kind of a funny little thing. It's like the biggest thing you learn how to handle when you go through aggressive dive training is how to maintain control of your involuntary functions, or at least be able to kind of suppress the choking, gagging, spitting, sputtering instinct when things hit your epiglottis. I actually learned how to do all that kind of stuff, so I can, generally speaking, have a lot more control of that kind of stuff. Now, it's within reason. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But if any of you ever wondered what was going on the wall behind me, that's what those things are. Those are kind of personal to me. Those were a difficult challenge that I was able to overcome. And in the way that those were a difficult challenge, physically, the post-whistleblower world that I've entered, the speaking for a living and sharing my face with an audience who sees me while I'm, it's hard to call it vacation, but when I'm traveling and I'm in another location, the strange sort of people caring about how I look, that's a totally new form of challenge. So now I have to suppress all that kind of stuff too. I'm watching our chat. Let me put our chat on the screen real quick. Guys on YouTube, will you give me a thumbs up if you're having a problem? It says that there are people that are on YouTube watching. Some of you may need to hit refresh. So maybe you guys can, here, I'll go type it over here. Sorry, this is a live show, so if you guys are listening and you're going like, oh, what's going on here? That's what's going on. Sometimes we fix things in real time. If you aren't getting the program, refresh. There we go. I love it. People are like, Seraphin's 10 minutes late today. I am not 10 minutes late. I think I might have been 1 minute late. All right, let's lead off with dumb things that people who are not that bright say. Mask off. That's the theme. And here we go. I'm frequently disappointed in politicians, but Tom Massey defied the odds in my unfortunate experiences with him as he surpassed my lowest expectations. That run-on sentence, missing certain punctuation and including others, comes from Dan Bongino, the former co-deputy director of the FBI. Remember, a man who was so bad at his job, they had to double up and give a second person his job so that they could both keep doing it. Haven't heard anything from Andrew Bailey in a while. Wonder what he's up to. This zero is a verb that he is using. The zero is referring to Tom Massey. Pretends to be a principled defender of liberty, but in real life, he supports third world tyranny. Oh, Dan. Dan. All right, so Dan says, here are the receipts for the phone call. These are screenshots that actually just prove that he took pictures in another country. That's pretty weird. Here are the screenshots. We'll just throw them on the screen here so you guys can look. He called Tom Massey on the 12th at 2:11 p.m. It's just slightly cut off on the version that I have here. And then there he is calling on November the 13th. It was on November the 12th. It was just that he was in another time zone, either when he took the screenshot or when he made the call at 1:36 a.m. He's either drunk dialing from another country or he's fuming about Tom Massey while he's hanging out in maybe Israel or Western Europe or God knows what, hanging out in Egypt or whatever it is that Dan Bongino does. There's a community note here. It says these screenshots recycle the same November 2025 phone logs about a 10-minute phone call with 2 missed follow-ups. They show contact occurred, but they do not refute the JSIC pipe bomber whistleblower letter on mishandling and retaliation or Massey's staff threats and claims Bongino left the FBI in January of 2026. Okay, so here you go. Dan Bongino makes the claim, and this is really important. This is a mask-off moment. This is going to be relevant, and I think that, as my buddy said last night, everything will change after today. I don't think it'll all change, but we are going to be dealing with a mask-off where people are going to be able to see what it is, and then you're going to have to decide whether or not you accept it. And that's up to you. Here's what Tom Massey wrote in this BS. By the way, this is just such stupid stuff that serious people who have held serious positions of power, a current congressman and a former co-deputy director of the FBI, the number 2 at my old agency, are having a Twitter fight. And the things that are being revealed, at least on Tom Massey's side, are really, really serious. And this is part of what I've been telling you that I can't tell you. It wasn't my story because I'm not Tom Massey and I'm not the other people. But what I can tell you is when they put it in the public, I am going to highlight it. Dan, in your first call, which I think is the first and last occasion you and I ever spoke, based on my conversations with Tom Massey about this, I think it's true. Number 1, you seemed upset that I'd received and released FBI whistleblower information about the pipe bomb investigation. Can confirm. The reason why is because the whistleblower who went to Tom Massey, whose disclosures I have reviewed, substantiated all the things that I said about the early investigation into the pipe bomber going back to January, the second week or third week of January in 2021. And it exposed that Bongino, Patel, Janine Pirro, Pam Bondi, they're all looking like fools because they went after and celebrated the arrest and the imprisonment of Bryon Cole Jr., who we believe at this program did not commit those crimes. Could not have committed those crimes and will be proven that he couldn't do it. Number 2, Massey says, I informed you that your staff had threatened to criminally investigate my staff as retribution against me for pipe bombs or Epstein activity, ? It sounds like it may have been about, it was a reprisal. And the claim was that Marshall Yates, who was a member of the Bongino staff at the FBI, Marshall Yates was a previous Tom Massey staffer, threatened to go after current members of Massey's staff, specifically because Massey was not letting the pipe bomber story just lay where it was and accepting the government narrative. That's a pretty big claim. And according to Massey, in his interview that he did with Steve Baker on The Blaze, we had a real problem with that. And Dan Bongino eventually recognized that this was not an acceptable way to operate. And so he said he was going to try to handle it. Number 3, and maybe most interesting to those of you who listened to our show last week. If you listened to our Wednesday show, if you listened to our Friday show, if you listened to my appearance on Viva Fry's podcast, then you saw that I've been served with a cease and desist and maybe a threat of a lawsuit by the retained counsel of Shawnee Kirkhoff. The retained counsel is called Claire Locke. They're a very expensive law firm that does expressly and maybe, what is it? It's like their specialty is defamation, and they're incredibly expensive. $1,800 an hour plus, very high types of retainers required. As I understand it, they don't work on contingency. It certainly wouldn't be worth a contingency to go after me. You're not going to get enough money to cover even your legal costs, I promise you. And Shawnee Kirchhoff's attorneys didn't just approach me with that letter. I'm not the only one who received it. It's not my story to tell the rest of it, but you guys can imagine the rest. Number 3 from Tom Massey's response. You threatened to personally finance a defamation suit against reporters on behalf of a suspect. Perhaps this was also a veiled threat to sue me. You said, quote, those depositions aren't going to be fun for the people involved, end quote, or something to that effect. In any case, the deputy director of the FBI shouldn't be financing civil lawsuits against reporters covering cases that the FBI is working on. When we did a program that was entitled It's All Connected, and yeah, I realize it was a little bit of a slow move talking to Steve Baker. Number 1, he's had heart trouble recently. Number 2, he's from Louisiana, and so he delivers things in a very specific way. And number 3, as you guys have probably come to learn, my style is to let people tell their story their way, and I don't try to stop them, and I don't try to hurry them up, and we're not really on a time limit. I've got all day, and if you don't, that's okay. The catch-up is as follows. Steve Baker's work was done in good faith. My coverage of their story was done in good faith. I've got a lot more belief in the work that Steve Baker did as an investigative journalist than I do in the FBI, specifically because I've talked to people who are current FBI agents, who have observed Bryon Cole Jr., who saw how Bryon Cole Jr. operated for literally years, living as neighbors and being in the same place as him, knowing that the FBI needed a win that was not Bryon Cole Jr., that was not Shawnee Kirchhoff, needed a person that was not going to be involved in the government. And despite all the things that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel said for literally years, talking about it was a government cover-up, that January 6th was this Fed insurrection, had people like Julie Kelly on to talk about it, and all of the sort of connections they made, how this person would have had to have been aligned with government, and then the work that Steve Baker showed that you could not have the January 6th pipe bomber without the cooperation, without the knowledge, and without sort of the background input from the United States Capitol Police. Those things are basically indisputable. There's no world where I can understand how a person who was autistic that randomly lived in Woodbridge, Virginia, had no experience in Washington, D.C., would go in, drop some devices that he hadn't even bought all the parts for yet, according to the government's own case. And then we're supposed to believe that a U.S. Capitol Police officer found the bombs, the second bomb, in 11 minutes and something seconds, 17 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever it was. The numbers escape me. In under 12 minutes, he went directly to the 2 places the pipe bomber had sat the night before and then stopped looking for bombs. The amount of illogical conclusions you'd have to draw from the bare facts of the case are mind-numbing. And whistleblowers have come out and said as much from the FBI. Number 4. You said you were going to call every agent in and get to the bottom of the whistleblower issue. When talking to Tom Massey, Dan Bongino, allegedly, because we're taking Tom Massey's word on it, although of the 2 of them, only one of them has lied to me, he said that you were going to call in every agent who would have been in a position to know and find out who the whistleblower was. 5, you offered me a briefing, but I was tied up until at least 6 p.m. on the Epstein Files Transparency Act, so I asked how late I could get the briefing, and you said you were going to leave the office by 5 p.m. This is Dan Bongino, who cried about staring at those 4 walls and doing this job that took forever, who seemed really, really upset about the idea of going into an office and going to work for far too long. Poor man. He was really upset that he might have to be in the office at 7:30 and still be there at 5 p.m. By the way, that's every FBI agent. Every FBI agent does that. Dan wasn't an agent. He was a political appointee that somehow got into a position that an agent was supposed to be in. Go figure. Number 6, I asked you a few questions on the call, and your answers indicated to me that you were perhaps less informed than me on some of the issues. Shocker. What have we been telling you here since day one? Going back to March of last year when Dan Bongino was sworn in, the odds are is that man probably knew less about the FBI and still probably knows less about the FBI than any of the FBI whistleblowers. Why? Because it takes a little while. Because he went in there and he was handled immediately. And 292 days is not long enough to really get your grasp on it. At 292 days in, I had completed the FBI Academy, and I basically had completed a home move, and I got a couple of days to understand who my squad was. I told you that the FBI loves to bubble wrap executives and to bubble wrap the people that come in to work that are from the outside. And they did exactly that to Dan Bongino. And Massey apparently experienced that by finding out that he didn't actually know the things that he should know. He continues on. A few hours after the call, I received and released a new whistleblower information from the FBI regarding an all-hands meeting, which matched what you told me in number 4 above, related to concerns that the meeting was called to out the whistleblowers. He misspelled the word whistleblowers. Come on, Thomas. What are we doing here? No, ladies and gentlemen, we showed it today. We published it at the time. This is going back to November. There was a real concern that a whistleblower from the FBI was going to be hunted in the same way that we were. But the only difference was when this whistleblower came forward and went to a mutual friend, Kurt Suzdak, who's a friend. He's been on this program. He's been on with me on InfoWars and others. Kurt Suzdak represented this whistleblower. And we had a ready-made, let's say, defensive strategy on social media and on our media here to stop the destruction of a person who was just operating in good faith, as you are required to do as an agent of the federal government. Then he goes on to explain the second phone call. It didn't show up. It was in the afternoon. For some reason, it shows up that your phone was at 1:36 a.m. Maybe you called me in the evening. It was like 8 o'clock. What the hell? Why did it show that it was in the middle of the night? Where the hell were you? That's all interesting. All right. Folks, Dan Bongino told Tom Massey that he was going to personally finance a defamation lawsuit on behalf of Shawnee Kirkhoff. And sometime in January, as Dan was leaving, I received a cease and desist type letter and a preservation request from a law firm that cost $2,000 an hour that no GS federal employee can afford. You can do the math on that. And I'm not the only one who got those letters. And today, you'll find out more about it. All right? I want to play a couple of things here. This is the king of mask off moments, by the way. Dan's having a mask off moment. So are the people over on Fox. I see all of these things. When I say they're all connected, I just feel like sometimes God gives us a chance to look behind the veil. Let's go to Fox News. The big news of yesterday was that we had a husband, the spouse of the female Homeland Security Secretary, who probably had no business being there. We've called her Border Barbie. A lot of people did. She seemed to like really do dress up. And apparently she wasn't just doing dress up. It was also her husband doing dress up. He just did it with big fake boobs and was paying women to watch him in some sort of sexual fetish. I've reached the point where I'm no longer interested in making peace with evil. I'm not going to vote for the lesser of two evils if people are doing this type of stuff. You can do it. I'm just not going to condone it. I watched a couple of people say things like, oh, you shouldn't kink shame. We need shame in this culture. And the removal of shame is probably the reason why so many people feel like this stuff is okay. I'm sure it's always been around. Sexual perversion, this sort of idea. Oh my God, I got to put this on the screen. Hold on a second. Jacob Castro put the parentheses with some periods and a Y to kind of indicate like a boobs thing and like an emoji type deal. But the periods are on the top and the bottom because, yeah, the picture that was released showed that this guy had these nipples that were all over the place like Kash Patel's eyeballs. All right, what I'm getting at is by accepting and by tolerating, by making peace with evil, by accepting a lesser of two evils and not no evil at all, we really have empowered this kind of stuff. This is Bret Baier doing a special report about this incredibly novel information that the spouse of Bryon Noem had no idea. Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, the person who ran like $100+ billion government agency, she had no idea that when she was out doing whatever it was she was doing, makeup, pretending to be a plumber, pretending to be a cowgirl, pretending to do all this other stuff. When she was out running a $250 million marketing campaign to try to increase her own sort of name recognition, she had no idea that her husband was running around in hot pants and pink panties and fake cartoonishly weird blow up boobs. Bret Baier takes that hook, line, sinker and says, we should really just give them some space and we should absolutely accept their word that they had no idea. How could she have ever known that her spouse that she's known since high school was into some weird, perverted, kinky sexual stuff. That's what serious news tells you. Megyn Kelly said the same thing too. And none of you believe it, and I don't believe it either. There's a kind of a duality that happens. There's not like a lot of places where there's a binary choice, but this is a binary choice. Either you are so woefully disobservant or unobservant, so disinterested in the human beings around you that you have no business holding any serious position because you didn't even recognize what was happening in your own household. That's one possibility. And the other possibility is that you were aware of it and you ignored it. And both of them should be grounds for saying your character is not sufficient to hold these positions. This is the same exact story with Jennifer Moore, the person who removed me. I see a lot of the commonalities, these repeating themes. Jennifer Moore's story was that while she was an FBI agent, Jennifer Moore is the woman who removed me, removed Steve Friend, removed the security clearance of Garrett O'Boyle and others. And her fun story is that while she was married to a police officer in Dallas as an FBI agent, he was involved in downloading and purveying and sharing child pornography, and he went to prison for it. And so either you are so woefully incompetent that you can't even recognize what's happening in your own house, or you're aware of it and you condone it. And both of them are grounds for termination that you shouldn't hold a position of public trust. Here's Bret Baier taking the mask off and saying that he absolutely, with zero skepticism at all, just accepts the narrative because that's what needs to be said. We need to give Kristi Noem some space. She's devastated by this news that there's no way she could have ever known. Sure.
Former Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is asking for privacy and prayers tonight. She's said to be devastated by a report alleging her husband has been what is being called a cross-dressing double life. Senior national correspondent Rich Edson has details tonight. Good evening, Rich.
Good evening, Brett. Well, former Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and now President Trump are responding to a report regarding Noem's husband's alleged online activities. A spokesperson tells the Daily Mail that she's devastated and that, quote, the family was blindsided by this, and they ask for privacy and prayers at the time. President Trump tells the outlet he knew nothing about it, adding, wow, I feel badly for the family. If that's the case, that's too bad. The Daily Mail alleges it obtained hundreds of messages between Bryon Noem and 3 women involved in a site where men cross-dress. The Mail posted several of these photos and writes Bryon Noem allegedly sent women in the community $25,000 in virtual payments. The publication says Bryon Noem did not deny the explicit conversations, but says he never put national security at risk while his wife was secretary, setting up a potential blackmail situation. Quote, yeah, I made no comments like that. That would lead to that. Bryon Noem operates a crop insurance agency. He and Kristi Noem married in 1992. They have 3 adult-age children. Earlier this month, President Trump ousted Secretary Noem from her role leading the Homeland Security Department after congressional hearings where she had difficulty answering whether she was having an affair with top aide Corey Lewandowski. With her husband seated behind her, she also faced questions about more than $200 million in DHS ad campaigns that featured Noem. Democrats are investigating that businesses that received money on that contract. The president named Noem as special envoy to the Shield of the Americas, Brett.
All kinds of stories today. Rich,
Lots
thank
of
you.
them, yep.
All right.
All kinds of stories today. Look at all that crazy stuff. I just completely, with no skepticism at all, just accept that she had no idea that her husband was walking around creating these weird bimbo pictures and paying somebody so that he could masturbate while wearing fake boobs. Life's a crazy thing, isn't it? We shouldn't shame people. We give them space and prayers in this time. Okay, this is an AI-generated picture. Do you know how I know? Because the nipples are in the right places, roughly speaking. And he didn't have a shirt, as far as I could tell. That was for the Shield of Americas. But this is a shirt that I like. I wish he was wearing this. This would show how he was supportive of his wife and her new job where she got fired. Now, does all this have to do with the alleged affair with Corey Lewandowski? Probably. Does all of this show you that people are willing to unskeptically take these sort of stories and then just not question the official narrative, which is that, how could she have known? She was so busy serving America, she had no idea that her husband from 1992 on was involved in this weird, kinky thing and that he was serving some other master. And we need prayers now. I mean, they do need prayers. I think that's true. We also can call out the ridiculousness of this scenario. Are you trying to tell me that people didn't do a deep dive background investigation and find out the compromat on these folks before they were moved into positions of national security? You cannot convince me of that. My wife had interviews. I know for a fact that they go and do these background checks on you, and they background check everybody that lives in the household with you. There's no chance that they didn't know if there was an affair. It was known. There's no chance that if this guy was involved in this behavior, and it seems like he was based on all the published pictures and some of the text messages and so on that have gone out there, that it wasn't something that they were aware of. So if you want to know how compromat happens, it's that people get nominated into positions because they're a known quantity, because they're easily manipulated and controlled, and everybody understands exactly what's going on. I actually have a video about that. It's an old sort of joke. This was actually played earlier about like, what's the difference between Tom Massey and some of the other people that are out there. I don't know that Tom Massey's squeaky clean perfect. I think if we talk to him, he probably would say that he's not. Let me see if I can put this up. This is kind of like all politicians, I feel like. We all sort of know this. And then everybody acts incredulous. And Brett Baer says, well, if you're just going to have to put on our newscaster voice here and make sure that there's prayers for the family as they go through this difficult moment. As though people didn't know this everywhere. In the Trump administration, there are probably people in the media. I guarantee members of the intelligence community were aware of it. When you're at DHS, you're part of the intel community. So it was just expedient to be able to leak this. Now, whether it was Kristi Noem who said, I need a good excuse and an explanation for why I'm having an affair with somebody, which is a possibility, the alleged affair that we can't confirm, but fine. A lot of talk, a lot of smoke. It all seems like they think you're dumber than you are. They might as well run ads like this. This is a parody ad, but it's pretty funny, so let's enjoy this.
Hi, I'm Gil Fulbright. The people who run my campaign, they've made this commercial, and I'm in it. This campaign, it's not about me. It's about crafting a version of me that'll appeal to you. A version that visits random work sites with paid actors pointing at things. A version of me that doesn't find old people loathsome or pointless. Has a conventionally attractive yet curiously still family. Listening to my constituents, legislating, these are things I don't do. What I do is spend about 70% of my time raising funds for re-election. I'd do anything to stay in office. My name's Gil Fulbright, but hell, I'll change my name to Phil Goldbright or Bill Fulbright or fill up my mouth with farts. These are the things that are important to me. And these are the fine people that finance my campaign. Now, in order to do these things, I have to stay in office. And to stay in office, I have to keep these guys happy. Now, if any of these things make these guys unhappy, well, my hands are tied. So come November, the choice is clear. Do you want another spineless mouthpiece for special interest and lobbyists? Or a spineless mouthpiece for special interest and lobbyists? I'm Philip a mouth with farts, and I approve this message. Hi,
well, there he is.
I'm Gil Fulbright.
That's Phil my mouth with farts. By the way they spelled that out is brilliant. Right. Do you want a spineless mouthpiece for special interests, or do you want a spineless mouthpiece for special interests? The binary is do you want to choose people that are compromised and are easily manipulated and have all these kind of skeletons in their closet that are known to people that need to be able to lean on them? Or do you want the people that are compromised with all these skeletons in their closet that are easily manipulated? It's well known. I mean, these are parody ads that we're looking at. That's not a new parody ad. And it's supposed to be a joke, except it's only funny because that's what we all think is true. And then sometimes we have these mask off moments where everyone does it. Do you remember we played a video of Megyn Kelly? I say that because Megyn Kelly's show is going to be relevant later on today. We played a little video of Megyn Kelly where she said, if I was working at Fox News and what we did in Venezuela kicked off, or what happened in Iran kicked off, I would know what my job was. Unapologetically cheerlead for the administration. She's still not that far away from the actress time. And so people can do good things, and I can celebrate that they do it. And they also can be generally spineless, and we can call that out as well. And I'm going to do that in 1 second here. I have this weird nuanced take that I just evaluate people's actions on each action. And then if enough of those actions pile up where it's like, you're a spineless liar, then we call you that. And if there's enough of the actions that say like, oh, well, like you're kind of a mixed quantity. Sometimes you do good things, sometimes you do bad things. Then we can call that. And if you do things that are mostly good and you've got a few things that are kind of skeletons or bad in your closet, then we can go like, hey, you're mostly good. You know, we should be able to look at stuff and be a little bit critical about it. Folks, if you're watching on Rumble, if you're watching on YouTube, if you had a problem getting on YouTube because for some reason the stream didn't want to go out for a minute, give us a like. I'd appreciate that. That's like a grand thumb kind of moment. If you've ever watched the stream and it didn't come up right away, that kind of thing. Yeah, subscribe to the channel. We've almost hit 20,000. We're just a couple away from hitting the 20,000 mark, which I guess is a milestone considering that we started last year at about 4,000. Boom. We're really getting there. So I appreciate that. You may hear an ad from Spotify. That's the other way that you can listen to us. Spotify ad is probably our single biggest monetization for this program. So I appreciate you guys tolerating all those. I don't know what they advertise, by the way. If it's really bad, let me know sometime. And I could try to remove some things that are categories we don't like. But it's KyleSeraphinShow.com. This is where you find it. I just so you guys understand, I am working on doing this Tackleberry project. Every time I step out of the studio, I walk into the Tackleberry project set, which is not really a set. It's just like my stuff, and it's all really cool. And it's like probably the coolest room in my house right now. I don't know how to start it. So we're going to start it off with a tour of the set. I'm going to start it off with a discussion about the thing that you should own. The one handgun I think everybody should own. If you don't own a gun, then this is the one that you should get, which is probably done all the time, but it's done from my perspective. And I've owned handguns now for, 20 something years. So I'll tell you why I own what I do, having bought all the others. And then I want your input. So if you guys have not signed up, it's at you are Tackleberry. I'm your Tackleberry on YouTube and on Rumble. Sign up over there. Leave me some comments on some of the posts and let me know what sort of interesting things you'd like to hear about, gear, gadgets, things like that. Tell me why. And if I don't own it already, I may just buy it. I'll just buy it and then we'll go over why it works. I've bought almost all the other ones, so check it out. All right. Okay, here's the Megyn Kelly bit. Remember, all of these people end up doing the same thing. They're almost there. And then they take their mask off and show you that they're still really part of the sort of the narrative block. This is independent media doing not independent media.
And now we get a comment from Kristi Noem, who tells the New York Post she's devastated by these allegations. It's some representative of hers saying she is devastated. The family was blindsided by this. They ask for privacy and prayers at this time. I mean, she's got them. She's got them. This is not what you want to see if you are married to anyone, to find out that this level of betrayal has happened. This speaks to somebody's entire character. The fetish, yes, but the lying, the deceit, the money, the getting off with another person, not your spouse, all of it is very dark and dirty and disgusting. And I'm sure whenever she found out, whether it was today or previously, I'm sure it's made her skin crawl, like it's making our skin crawl. And just what an incredibly reckless risk for her husband to have taken, given the position she just held for the first year of the Trump administration. It's not the president's fault. It's her husband's fault. And I wouldn't be so. They've been married since they were they're sweethearts since they were in high school. He's talked about it. She came on our show and talked about it. She was a young rancher's daughter. They met. They fell in love. I actually think we queued some of this up. Here is, let's see. Yeah, he gave an interview to Moms for America in April of 2021. And here he is talking about how his relationship with Kristi started. SOT 3.
We were friends, and I was a classmate with her brother. And so I was acquainted with her throughout high school. And then she went to the same college I did. We started dating when she was in high school, and she went to college. And then just, the typical off and on relationship. And we finally started to get serious. And then I asked her to marry me, and of course she said yes. And so, but we grew up in the same community, going to the same school, with the same group of friends, raised on a farm with the same kind of upbringing, good values, hard work. And when I went to college my freshman year, I'd heard that she had some interest in me. And then, of course, why wouldn't I have interest in her? She's remarkable. So we started dating then, and then it kind of went from there. And in 1992, we got married.
It really does make you wonder what causes a fetish like this in somebody. And now...
It really doesn't make me wonder that at all. I think that there's all kinds of weird demonic stuff. People do all kinds of evil things. If you spent any time in the world, you just go like, yeah, there's a bunch of creepers. What makes people do this out loud is that nobody tells them that it's wrong. Nobody does the sort of classic thing where they go, hey, by the way, there's this thing, it's right and wrong. And if you're trying to tell me that woman had no idea what her husband was up to, having known him since 1992, I just don't believe you. I don't believe you. I think the answer to it is the oldest answer. It's shame. It's stop lying to us like we don't know what's going on. Can we just talk to each other like grown-ups and adults? How about we get a Nigerian guy to tell us how it is? Yesterday was the Transgender Day of Awareness. This is one of the great clips of all time. One of the most obvious things where someone acts like a child and then just says true things because it's just true. We don't have to negotiate about it. We don't have to compromise with it. We don't have to try to like make peace with evil. We can just go, hey, the thing you're doing is freaking weird. Why? Why are you like that? And we don't have to say, well, nobody knew. And how could anybody have guessed? We just have to say, why are you gay? Why are you like this?
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay. You are a transgender.
What shows that I'm gay?
You are a transgender, yes, and you're a gay rights activist and an outspoken lesbian, homosexual. How can I describe you? Transgender. You were initially male or female?
The sex that was assigned to me at birth was female.
And you opted to become male? You're within transition?
Yes.
Now, we're looking at the raging debate. You're a gay rights activist. Why should someone be gay?
Just for the record, I am not a gay rights activist.
So as we stand today, are you dating any female?
Yes, I am.
You have a girlfriend?
Yes, I do.
While in transition, you're having a girlfriend?
Yes.
Do you perform the natural obligations?
I'm not sexually active right now.
That goes on and on. It's one of the great ones. For those of you who have not ever sent that to your friend, why are you gay? What's wrong with you? You're probably not a regular dude. You probably, if you don't have that queued up to be able to send to a good friend of yours for some reason, you're missing out on a great opportunity whenever they send you something done. He's just asking the logical questions, which are ridiculous, which is like, oh, you're a woman. Oh, you're dating a woman. So why are you gay? Okay. Is it sophisticated? No. Is it polite? Is it politically correct? No. It turns out that's not actually what anything that is true has to do. We don't have to go out there and pretend like nobody knew this guy was involved in this thing. The people that were closest in his life had to have known. And I guarantee you the background investigators would have known as well. And that means that you're compromised. They love compromised. The ubiquitous they that runs things. We've got a really fun little sort of like palate cleanse at the end of the day talking about the CIA, which is way too short when it comes to the number of things that it shows. And it's way too long for this program. We're still going to play it all. It's so simple. I had my gun taken from me from a guy named Mike Copeland. I'm going to just tell you this is a personal story, but I'll just share it anyway. My gun was taken by a guy named Mike Copeland when I worked for the FBI. They took it because I spray painted my gun so that it fit into some desert colors. By the way, I owned the gun and I spray painted the FBI's gun. If you guys have ever spray painted a gun, you know it comes off with your hands. It's literally not a refinishing. And there's an FBI policy that says you can't refinish the gun, which would mean like Cerakote or maybe some sort of like durable long-term coat, KG gun coat, something like that. But spray paint is not a problem. And every guy I know that was on SWAT was given spray paint to actually spray paint their gun. So they were mad at me for spray painting my gun. And the guy who took it, Mike Copeland, took the gun, and then I started finding out things about him, which was that he was on the Baltimore SWAT team, that he got involved in a shooting, that he shot at an unarmed female, a black female in Baltimore, just after the Freddie Gray riots. And he claimed that her fingernails, which were metallic, reminded him of a gun, so he fired at her. Then he stopped, then she cowered in the corner of the room, and then she got up and she ran out of the room. And he kept shooting. If you guys have ever been into a law enforcement scenario and you know anything about shootings, this is the craziest thing you've ever heard, okay? He went into a room, saw a woman who was unarmed, and shot at her and missed like 5 times. She dropped to the floor, obviously terrified, cowered, clutched everything. Then he stopped shooting. Then she got up and she ran out of the room and he started shooting again. And he chased her with the rifle, shooting through drywall and blindly into a room that he could not see through the walls. And it almost hit her dad. The FBI ruled it a good shoot only because he didn't actually shoot her and then paid out the families with our money. That guy was sent to retraining, while he was at retraining, I'm told by people who went through the class with him that he said, I can't wait to get back to my team and get back on the gun. His own words. Crazy. And then he was promoted to be the senior SWAT team leader in Albuquerque and the principal firearms instructor, the PFI. And he's the guy that took my gun. A guy who had a legitimately bad shoot and almost killed a woman when he had no justification to do so. They love compromise. And every time I see these people, I realize, oh, that's exactly what's going on. You guys are asking, how did he miss? He was in a room in Baltimore. If you guys have ever been in a townhouse in Baltimore, it's insane that you could miss. It's insane. You shot with a rifle inside of a closed room, maybe a 10-foot shot, and didn't hit. All right. All I'm saying is the compromise, it's absolutely wild to me. Let's maybe expand out. Let's talk about the fact that we should just accept everything with a bit of skepticism. You guys want to know why I support Joe Kent? I've had minimal dealings with Joe Kent, but all my dealings have been in honest and good faith. And the dealings he had with my friend Steve Baker and the smear job that is going on against him tells me that that's the best that they have, is a fake story about leaking documents to a person that I know, and the story is actually 180 degrees. He went on and talked to Redacted the other day. I want you to listen to what I regularly tell you on this program, which is my position. It's just a thing that I recommend to you. I'm not telling you how to think. I'm just telling you how I think. I'm a skeptic. If somebody on Fox News tells me, we really need to do thoughts and prayers for the family, like they're completely caught off guard by this, I think you're full of crap. I think you're a liar. Why? Because I'm a skeptic. And if Fox News says it, I think that that's suspect. That's the official narrative. Listen to the word skepticism come from this man's mouth. He's asked, hey, are you a psyop? Now, granted, if you're doing some sort of psyop and you're being tasked by somebody, you're not going to admit to it. But having been in the spot where people are like, oh, you're obviously working on behalf of the feds, how would that work exactly? I've had Julie Kelly, I've had Dan Bongino share. I've had my former boss, who was an FBI agent and retired, accuse me in the last few days of being a Fed when that dipshit takes the talking points from Kash, Patel, Dan Bongino and is doing everything he can while on a federal retirement with a federal pension and federal medical benefits for the rest of his life. That guy is calling me a Fed because we're just living in the dumbest possible terms where they think you are so stupid that you're going to uncynically, uncritically, and unskeptically just take on information that they say. And if somebody says it, if Dan Bongino said it, it must be true. If Brett Baer said it, it must be true. If Laura Ingraham said it, it must be true. If Donald Trump said it, it must be true. If Pete Hegseth said it, it doesn't matter who says it. Whatever the truth of the day is, if that's what it is, that's why we did the thing about the goldfish memory the other day. They think that your memory is like 8 seconds long. The problem is the internet exists right now, and I can play you the clip showing otherwise. Here's Joe Kent talking about, are you a psyop? And what does he say? Be skeptical of me. Evaluate me based on actions. Oh, what a logical and reasonable thing for a reasonable person to say. You want to know who is worth listening to? It's the person that tells you, by all means, watch me and see if my actions and my words line up.
A lot of people, I think, when you popped up and offered your resignation letter, there are a lot of people who've watched the intelligence community for years, people who've been former, members of the military, who've said this is a psyop because suddenly when someone who comes riding in on a white horse pops up out of nowhere with a resignation letter to support your position, people sort of rally around this guy. Joe is now the savior.
Well, let's point out this is your second time on Redacted, so you're not out of nowhere. So.
No, I'm saying, but suddenly we get to hear from Joe in protest of the Iranian war, and for a lot of people that was like, oh, this is the salve to the MAGA problem right now. Like, we do not want boots on the ground. Joe is the guy. How do you respond to the PSYOP piece of this?
I think people should stay skeptical. I appreciate that, actually. I mean, we're in an era of deception, unfortunately. So I get it. I think if people observe me and they've known me for a couple of years now, they'll see that that's just simply not the case. Took a fair amount of risk, I think, coming out the way I did. So yeah, that's kind of all I can say. I haven't read too many of the conspiracies, but I totally understand the skepticism. I think it's healthy and good.
I mean, if I were going to run an extension of the neocon movement, I probably would do something like this. You have a very impressive resume.
Serve your country.
Yes, you are well spoken. Clayton gets a little jealous, but you're a handsome dude. You can take to the campaign trail. I'm sorry, honey.
I can handle it.
And so I'm sure we have seen people of that ilk put into this role for a specific purpose. So you can't blame people for seeing it this way, right?
Not at all. No. I mean, I think people questioning everything is good. Please do. I dig into people's finances too. I mean, that's a big thing. I ran for office twice before unsuccessfully. I think if people look at, where I got my funding for those two runs, they'll kind of see that I was supported by mostly small dollar donors. I think almost all small dollar donors. So yeah, I think the skepticism I think is good though. No pushback on skepticism.
But do you have
no pushback on skepticism? Real simple. That's it. That's Clayton Morris and Natalie from Redacted. Love those two. They're funny. They're a married couple that's on screen together. They're great. She said, "You're a handsome dude." He is a handsome dude. Joe Kent's a handsome guy. He's a stud too. He's physically a stud. And what is he saying? The most utterly reasonable thing. Yeah, trust but verify. Look at me skeptically and then see if my actions align. Go back and look into my past. Go look into the financial connections I have. Knock yourself out. He spent 30 years with a top secret clearance. You guys think he got away? You think he got away with like pulling off something real sneaky? It's just not the way that it works. If you're compromised, you get to stick around. They don't throw you to the wolves like that. So we're going to get into a little bit more of the new stuff. Let's do this story here. Live updates about Donald Trump saying that Iran has requested a ceasefire. He threatens to pull the United States out of NATO. I thought we were going to get that early on. Man, I'll tell you, it wasn't explicitly in the Agenda 47, but like the inklings that I got from Donald Trump speaking was that we were going to be out of NATO. And why would we be out of NATO? Well, because it was focused on something that didn't have to do with America today, that it was not in America's best interest. We were funding it at a high level, way higher than anybody else involved, and everyone else benefited except America. So if you took an America first position, you would look and say, does NATO really benefit us? Do we really think the Russians are going to start moving in? And will we not be able to move in and help some group, Lithuania or Estonia or something like that we have an ongoing military relationship with, where we have training and troops and, and familiarity with? I've got buddies that train with Estonians and Latvians and Lithuanians and so on. Are you saying that we wouldn't be able to go do that? What is it? 7th Group Special Forces, I think, like focuses on that Eastern Europe. Why the hell do we need to be part of NATO? We don't need an official non-aggression treaty. It doesn't exist. The thing that we created NATO for doesn't even exist. And here's what's funny. Pete Hegseth went out. Let's talk about people. You just listen to them, let's evaluate their words, and then decide. Pete Hegseth said, yeah, we're thinking about pulling out of NATO. That's Donald Trump's prerogative. That'd be great. I would love it if he did that. I'll praise him for doing so, by the way. And then he also seems to indicate that we don't actually have a missile threat from Iran. You guys, did he just sneak something in here? You guys listen. Let's see what happens here.
And as far as NATO is concerned, that's a decision that will be left to the president. But I'll just say a lot has been laid bare. A lot has been shown to the world about what our allies would be willing to do for the United States of America when we undertake an effort of this scope on behalf of the free world. These are missiles that don't even range the United States of America. They range allies and others. And yet when we ask for additional assistance or simple access basing overflight, we get questions or roadblocks or hesitations. And the president's pointing out, you don't have much of an alliance if you have countries that are not willing to stand with you when you need them. He's simply pointing that out. And ultimately, it'll be his decision of what that looks like after this is complete.
Wait. Did you just hear the Secretary of War of Defense tell you that the missiles that we're taking out in Iran don't even have the capabilities of reaching America? Which is what we've all said. So you can't say that Iran was an imminent threat to the United States. You could say it was a threat to American military interests that are all overseas. We could theoretically pull them back. It's just kind of interesting. We've been led to believe that it started one way, and then we hear the other thing, and it's like, oh, you guys are kind of sharing what we all thought. You're telling us how it works. Interesting. I'm gonna share another clip with you. All right, this is a totally unrelated clip. I think Pete Hegseth just took the mask off a little bit. He just told you the truth. He didn't necessarily mean to. Here's a person that tells you the truth in another way. He says it in the most slimy way possible so that I can listen to his voice and go, what you're saying is in direct conflict with the way that you act. And therefore, I know not to trust anything you say. This is you being genuine, and it's so fake that there's no chance that I'm going to listen to anything else you say and go, yeah, I'm going to just take you at your word. Do you think Mike Johnson says, oh, you should definitely be critical and skeptical of us. You should look into what we do. And then, no, he says, we're doing the greatest job there's ever been done. No one's ever been greater. He's fill my mouth with farts. Fill my mouth with farts. Whatever the guy's name is. Here's the Speaker of the House. Mask off moment as well by keeping the mask on, kind of showing us that it is a mask.
The Working Families Tax Cut was written for lower and middle class earners, for the people who get up and start working before the sun rises and goes home after it sets to feed their families. Bob is a great example. He's an Uber driver. He's going to save so much money this year. And
is that Joe the plumber that he's talking about? No, it's Bob the Uber driver. We have an updated version of Bob the plumber. It's Joe the Uber driver who gets up before the sun comes up to feed his family. And he does what? He does some BS contractor job driving a car for a company that takes a cut. What are we even talking about here?
everybody who works in a tip job, they pay zero taxes now, Lawrence, on the first $25,000 of their tipped income for the average American that does.
Do you know what? Everybody who's married also pays zero taxes on the first $25,000. Are those an overlap? I haven't even done my taxes yet to find out, but I'm really grossed out, but I have to listen to this guy. This soft face, soft hands, coiffed haired, glasses wearing, suit wearing actor who might as well be the same as Kristi Noem's husband to me. These are just people who are doing show business for ugly people. You guys just said in the chat, there's a boob picture of Mike Johnson somewhere. There's a picture of Mike Johnson doing something somewhere. I think we all look at him and go, yeah, that's not the real you. And I hate to see what the real you looks like.
Those jobs, that's about $1,300 more in their pocket. You're talking about millions of Americans. I mean, here in New York, 500,000 people worked in tip jobs. The Pew Research Center says about 43% of Americans have done that at some stage in their life. So this is real money for real people. Overall, you're talking about $191 billion in additional refunds because of our legislation and about $30 billion less in withholding. So real money for real people.
Oh my God, I'm so excited about the real money for real people. Guys, do you feel good about that real money for real? This is real money for real people. This is the way we talk. When we talk like this, we just talk the way that we ought to. This is the way that we're programmed to talk because this is what you know is the real information. We're really saving you $1,300. It's right back into your pocket. Never mind the fact that we're at war with Iran and the individual household cost for the war in Iran is now at the minimum $1,400 per American household. We just took the money that we saved you in the no tax on tips, and we spent it on a war that we promised you we wouldn't do. And that's what we're talking about here. And that's how you know that this is just it's just the Smithers routine. It makes me want to puke watching these people. I'm going to give you another one that makes me want to puke. You ready for a mask off? It's not obvious to you, but I'm going to share it with you. Yesterday, my favorite guy, James O'Keefe, he's one of my other favorite punching bags. James O'Keefe was served with a restraining order from a guy named Matt Tierman on air by a sheriff's deputy. Now, Owen Schroyer said, James O'Keefe is right in this clip. And the words he's saying are correct. But I'm going to point out something that you guys haven't seen either. So we're going to do a little clip of James O'Keefe's podcast where he decided to lambast a process server, giving him a court order that didn't write it, didn't read it, isn't a participant in it, and is certainly not a speaking party that can answer for anything in the paperwork. It was signed off on by some judge. That's it. Now watch this.
Have you ever served a domestic restraining order against a newsroom before? You ever serve a restraining order against a journalist?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Sir, I don't think you understand what you're involved in here.
I don't understand.
Yeah, he agrees.
I don't know what everybody does for a living, so I may have served somebody that's.
Well, we're a news organization. Okay. There's something called the First Amendment, and it prohibits people from serving restraining orders against us from reporting what they say. It's a pretty fun.
That's not necessarily true. And it was signed off on by a judge, so God knows what the story is. But let me just go ahead and point out the real obvious thing here, that what you just saw was. James O'Keefe is sitting in his podcast studio, and he's having a dramatic interaction with a sheriff's department deputy from his local sheriff's office. Now I want to do the backstory on how that happened. He's having a televised, taped, live broadcast I was just served a restraining order on air. And he grabs his pearls. Make sure you donate to our legal defense because I have these frivolous lawsuits and I've called Kyle Seraphin to sit and I paid my attorneys for 8 hours of bullshit testimony about nothing. Do you want to know how the process server got into the room to be able to serve that process live on air? James's staff let them in. They let them in, showed him where James was, invited him into the room, and then they had this fake staged interaction because everything for James O'Keefe is also theater. It's show business for ugly people, this politics. It's the same crap. I've had process servers show up to my house while I was streaming this show. Guess what happened? They went away because nobody answers the door. If you don't answer the door, they don't kick in the door to give you a piece of paper. So his people let them into the studio through the front door, said, James is in this room. Feel free to go on. And by the way, we're live on air right now. And the guy said, I don't really care. My job is just to hand you a piece of paper. And then he went on this tirade about the First Amendment and cloaked himself in the majesty of the Bill of Rights. And it's all fake and gay. It's all fake. It's as gay as the freaking balloon tits on Kristi Noem's husband. That's how gay it is. It's all fake. They're all taking this mask off. It doesn't matter whether it's Brett Baer pretending nobody knew about this and everybody needs a moment of silence. It's James O'Keefe saying, oh, sir, do you realize I am a journalist, capital J, made up? They asked me while I was doing a deposition, what are your qualifications, Kyle Seraphin, as a journalist? I'm like, I don't know. I've sued the federal government for journalistic purposes like a half dozen times already. I was a paramedic where I wrote investigative reports into people's health based on information that was around me, things that people were trying to conceal. I was a federal agent. I used to investigate people who lied for a living. I created criminal cases against people that would withstand scrutiny. And I grew up around newsrooms. I've spent more time around newsrooms than James O'Keefe has, and James O'Keefe founded a quote-unquote newsroom propaganda outlet. My father was the news director of KCBS, the largest CBS affiliate on the West Coast when I was born. I don't know. I grew up around it. It doesn't mean that I have some special knowledge. Guess what? There is no capital J journalism. There is no priesthood you get ordained into. The First Amendment is the First Amendment. So what we keep seeing is all these people that are involved in theatrical productions, they keep doing theater. And some of them want to do one thing where they go, can you believe what has happened to me? And some of them go, and that's just how it is, folks. They Walter Cronkite you. This is the news, and I'm the only person that can tell you. And if I say it, it must be true. I'm Dan Bongino. I'm Walter Cronkite. I'm Mike Johnson. And those are the facts. Take them and do not question them. Or you have guys like me or Clayton at Redacted. You got Viva Fry. You got Steve Baker. And you go, not all of us have any special omnipotence. We're actually all under God and we're all given just a little piece of information. If we can use that to reveal truth to people, then we'll do it. Sure. If you do that, though, you're going to pay for it. It's going to cost you. I promise you, it'll cost you access. It'll cost you money. It'll cost you sponsors. It'll cost you friends. It'll cost you political capital. Might cost you your job. What if you come up and you just declare that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior? What if you come out and you just say, I'm a born-again Christian and I do not stand with the perversion that exists in our culture? They'll cancel you. Even if you're just a tall black guy who plays basketball for the Chicago Bulls. Yeah, that could happen.
That the world can proclaim LGBTQ. Right? They proclaim Pride Month and the NBA. They proclaim it. They show it to the world. They say, come join us for Pride Month to celebrate unrighteousness. They proclaim it. They proclaim it on the billboards. They proclaim it in the streets. Unrighteousness. So how is it that one can't speak righteousness? How is it one that how are they to say that you man, this man is crazy?
I'm not the Jay I used to be, but the OJ is dead. I'm alive in Christ. no matter what the basketball setting is, I'm born again, the Holy Spirit. I've been saved by Jesus Christ. No matter what, how many DMPs I don't get to play, or no matter how many points I score, those things are a temporary thing.
Guys, I don't really get into sports news. I don't really care that much about sports ball. I do care about people taking a stand for something. That's Jaden Ivey. He was with the Bulls. He just got released from his contract. The Chicago Bulls announced today that the team has waived guard Jaden Ivey due to the conduct detrimental to the team. And apparently the conduct detrimental to the team is saying that he's a Christian loudly, proudly. He's saying that he's not going to celebrate Pride because he thinks that's a problem. It's so simple. This is the same problem that you had with FBI whistleblowers working in a completely different and a totally much more serious, I would say, job. There's nobody at the Chicago Bulls that takes away your freedom or could take your life away. But they're telling you that this conduct was not because of his ability to play the game that he was hired to do. It's not because he wasn't fulfilling his contract and operating as a player in good faith or whatever. No, it's because he said things that he believed, and that was conduct unbecoming. You can be an NBA player and you can knock up 20 different women. You could run around wearing fake balloon boobs and come out as a female when you're not on the court, but a male on the court, and they'll keep you. You could beat the living crap out of anybody in your family, your mom, your girlfriend, your wife's boyfriend. You could beat up anybody. You could commit felonies that are violent, and the NBA will make apologies for you. But what you cannot do is go out and declare that you're reborn in Christ. God forbid. And he's not even my flavor of it. But you know what? He's not a particularly articulate guy when he was saying this thing. And do we not have a First Amendment? Where's James O'Keefe's pearl clutching about this? This is a much bigger deal than somebody giving you some sort of personal interaction that you had from your last company and serving you, quote unquote, live on air. Here's his coach saying what happened. This is a First Amendment lawsuit. Are we going to see the DOJ under Harmeet Dillon come after the Chicago Bulls? Maybe. Maybe we'll have a civil rights case here. This seems like a real problem.
Billy, obviously, news that the organization really doesn't love to embrace today with Jaden. First of all, did you see what it was transpiring the last couple days with him and the stuff he was posting? What was your concern level? Because it just, I mean, no one ever knows anybody. We got a brief meeting with him, but he seemed to be spiraling in my eyes. What did you see of the whole thing?
I had not followed or seen that myself, but obviously Beth had shared with me some of the stuff that was going on, right? And we've been on this road trip. I would just say this, at least since I've been with the Bulls, we've got people in there from all different backgrounds, right? Inside the organization. So I think the first thing is how well organized. This goes for players, I think coaches, everybody in that building. It's always been, I think, that what's been from the top, like, we're all going to work well together. We're all going to basically take care of each other. We're going to accept each other. And I think we're going to be hardworking. We're going to be accountable, and
we're going to be hardworking. We're going to be accountable, and we're going to make sure that we cater to gay people who are major NBA fans. We're going to basically make sure that you understand that the virtue that we hold on to is like what, maybe less than 10% of the sports fans that are even available, let alone the actual fan. Is there any polling as to the LGBTQ fans of the NBA? Like, who are these people? Who are they virtue signaling to? I don't know. This is coming from NBC Sports. Rare moment that I cover this, but I think it's interesting culturally. Chicago waives Jaden Ivey for, quote, conduct detrimental to the team after an anti-LGBTQ rant. I would call it a pro-Christian rant, wouldn't you? I would rarely even call that that would be a profession of faith. That's what I heard. Saying that something which for all of the last 2,000 years in Western civilization has been thought of as perverted, and perversion simply means something is outside the norm. What are we doing here? Jaden Ivey played 4 games for the Bulls due to, he played just 4 games because he had left knee pain and was already shut down for the season. He was just waived by the Bulls. Now, is this just an excuse? Maybe it is. In recent days, he posted several long social media viral rants. He was, quote unquote, spiraling. These were, quote unquote, rants. And what did he say? Come join us for Pride Month and celebrate unrighteousness. I remember my dad was in charge of the Texas Rangers marketing, and he was proud when they rejected the Pride Month piece. This is the thing that we're actually called to do. You're called to step up and be a white martyr. A white martyr is something we haven't talked about on this program in a very long time, but it's someone who says things that are true, period, non-negotiable. That if you're involved in some sort of sexual deviancy, we can call it deviancy. It doesn't mean that we think that you're terrible, you should be stoned, or you should be excommunicated, that you can't be part of polite society. It means that we're praying for you. We hope something better will happen, and not whatever it is you're doing. We hope that you will turn away from that thing. Interestingly, I think this actually plays really well into Alex Jones's little discussion on what we see with Donald Trump. You can take the mask off. The NBA, we knew who they were. The NFL, we know who they are. MLB, I don't know. Major League Baseball, hit or miss. I know who our politicians are. I know what the culture is trying to tell us. I know what the mainstream media tries to sell us. How about the alternative guys? Can they course correct when more information is available? I know for a fact, and this is not something that's necessarily public, but I don't think Alex would care if I talk about it. Our private conversations end up being public every time I go on his program. Alex has told me that he's been massively conflicted by his coverage and his support for Donald Trump because he never really supported a politician before. And he and I talked about this quite a bit. So here you go. Where's our Alex Jones thing? This is my favorite. I think I've got it in here. There it is.
Exclusive. Breaking exclusive. Breaking exclusive.
I love the Alex Jones clip. When I talked to Alex, he was like, I'm in this terrible place where I have to support this man that I've started supporting because I've never supported anyone before. And I thought that we outsourced the revolution. Here's who I am. This is what I'm all about. Alex Jones is like, I'm caught in this bind where I have to be able to support Donald Trump. And I don't know what he's doing anymore. It's like, no, you don't have to support anybody, Alex. You just have to be Alex Jones. You just have to commit to the truth. Whatever it is, as you see it at that moment, you do the best you can. So this is real simple stuff. Alex went on a discussion yesterday that I've been waiting for him to do for a long time, and I'm so excited that he did it. He said exactly the thing that should be the case for all these people. For Kristi Noem's husband, for Mike Johnson, who I think is a snake, who I listen to, and every time I listen to him, I hear oily in his voice. For James O'Keefe, who is not conservative as far as I can tell. He's like in his 40s, single man, running around, doing the bimbo thing, girls on Instagram, all that kind of stuff. We've shared all that kind of thing. He's not a moral person. He may do some good work. You can hate the sin and love the sinner. You can do exactly what Alex just said should be the kind of position for people that are in MAGA, that want this country to be good and are looking and saying, I voted for what they said, but not for what they're doing. And I still want those promises from Agenda 47, which is why I keep harping on it. Here's Alex.
When your ankles swell up 3 times the size they were before, that means heart failure. And he does look sick. And he does babble and, sound like the brain's not doing too hot. And so we just cut bait on Trump and we just mobilize against the Democrats. And we mobilize against neocons, we primary them, and we just fight even harder because look at how we've turned the tide. Look at all the good we've done. There's a fourth turning. Populists, nationalists, conservatives are winning everywhere. There's a Christian reawakening. And Trump is just a minor figure in all of that now. And we have to be appreciative of the old Trump that went through so much and got so much done. And that's the Trump we remember. And we're just sad because that happens. We need to be sad about Trump. This is not funny. This is not good. But he's gone. And that's it. And all the people rallied around him. You can see Hegseth's freaked out. You can see the press secretary's freaked out. They're being loyal. They think it's the lesser of two evils. And okay, but I just, Trump needs intervention. He needs to take some time off. We need to pray for Trump, that the Holy Spirit touch his heart and loose him from whatever evil control he's under. I'm serious. And I think that's the answer. We need to pray for President Trump. We need to pray for other people to be awakened. We need to pray for justice and peace.
That's it. Take the mask off. Let's just look at it for what it is and evaluate it as it says. And a lot of Americans are doing that. And I covered it the other day. I told you that people who spend more time online looking at this garbage see what I see every single day, that some of you that are political nerds and spend your time in social media circles trying to divvy up what's going on. We're trying to divine out what's accurate and what's not. Who's lying to us and who's not. How do I assess these things? So we've been trying to play that game. And interestingly enough, fewer Americans than ever before are calling them, or at least for the last 11 years, are calling themselves Republicans or even Republican-leaning independents. Because when you screw people, when you take the thing that they believe, when they took you at your word, you said no new wars, you said all these other things, you make all these promises, the agenda is domestic. We're going to make America affordable again. We're going to focus on the things that you want. We're going to go after the Bob the plumbers. We're going to help the, whatever it is, Eddie the Uber driver, whatever the hell bullshit Mike Johnson was slinging right there. People believe you because they need to. They're not in a position to be able to fix these things. You are if you're in that space. So what are we going to do with you? The gap between the share of Americans calling themselves Democrat or Democrat-leaning independents and those calling themselves Republican or Republican-leaning independents is wider than it's been since 2015. That was in the Obama years, according to quarterly averages gathered by Gallup. The share of Americans saying that they are Republican or Republican-leaning in the first quarter of 2026, 39%, is at an all-time low dating back to 2015. It has been as low as 40% several times before, as recently as the last quarter of 2025. That's not a great situation. That means it's a trend going downward. At the same time, the share of Americans saying that they're either Democrats or Democrat-aligned independents has reached 49%, matching highs from the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. If you don't think there's going to be a bloodbath for the GOP in November, I don't know what tea leaves you're reading, but it's really obvious to me. And the reason is because a lot of people that are like me, I would never call myself Democrat aligned. The things they do are crazy to me. There's a lot of people that are just not going to align with anything. So what did you just hear there? There's 39% of people that basically are GOP or leaning GOP. That would normally be me, the leaning GOP. And I won't even say that anymore. That means there's an 11%, the critical 11% of people who are up for grabs that are theoretically not politically aligned. I would suggest to you that they're to the right of the GOP or the GOP leaners. They would have to be. Because the people that lean left, they lean left. 49% of people that are on the Democrat side or they align with Democrats, they're leftists. The bacon cheeseburger nationalists, it might be 11% of the population. People that just go, what in the actual crap are you talking about? I want nothing to do with it. You want to know the best way to get rid of them? Tell people that nuclear Iran was the problem after your Secretary of War said that they weren't and that they didn't have the ability to strike the homeland, and tell them that $4 a gallon for gasoline is a small price to pay for things unknown. You could do what Donald Trump just did the other day.
On Iran, but first one that affects Americans here at home, gas prices. Today they hit $4.
We're $4, yeah, and we have a country that's not going to be throwing a nuclear weapon at us in 6 months.
But Americans are feeling the effects in the interim.
And they're also feeling a lot safer.
What is the plan to bring them back down?
All I have to do is leave Iran, and we'll be doing that very soon. And they'll become tumbling down. And stock prices were up today almost to a record because they know two things. Number one, we have a safe country. We had to take a little detour because we had a madman named Khomeini who sadly is no longer with us.
Oh, we had to do that, huh? And then what? You guys couldn't articulate why or how or what was going on. The Dow was over 50,000. I heard a lot of excuses. Take the mask off. You know it's bad news when Fox News knows they have to address it. Brett Baer may be able to cover over somebody's weird fake silicon, breast costume. But at some point, someone's going to have to acknowledge the reality, which is that your dwindling audience is looking and going, you're not speaking things that are honest. You're not even attempting honesty. How on earth are we going to listen to you ever? And then you get the big guns out there. And Laura Ingraham might be the smartest of the hosts. She's smarter than Jesse Waters. She's certainly more credible in my book. Smarter than Hannity. She's been co-opted to say what she's supposed to say, the way that Megyn Kelly told us they do. So here you go. This is her acknowledging that there's some problems here.
I know some conservatives are worried that we've gotten off track. They're fretting about Iran. They wonder what happened to America first. Social media is hyping conservative infighting, fears of a midterm wipeout. So some of you may be thinking, What was it all for? Look, I'm not underestimating any of your concerns. I share some of them. Trump is taking some big risks, but with big risks come great rewards. Eliminating the Iranian threat is a gift to future generations. But in the meantime, look, we'll see how it all works out. But in the meantime, I'm choosing not to panic. After all, no one on God's green earth has a better political sense than Donald Trump. He didn't become president of the United States twice and come this far to blow it all on a lark. So why not take a deep breath, step back, and reframe our thinking?
Why don't you just tell us you just took the mask off and that your entire job is to be a cheerleader? Allow me to acknowledge and then also tell you that all the things you're upset about, they've totally been calculated, and we're totally not living in a world where somebody who doesn't know what's going on anymore is doing stuff. I listened to Michael Savage on a clip the other day. I used to listen to Michael Savage when I lived in the Bay Area. I like Michael Savage. I think he's a madman, kind of like Alex Jones. He's 84 years old at this point. He's been doing this for forever. And he seemed like a really sane person. If Alex Jones is comfortable saying honest things like we should pray for the president, and we can also focus in on the agenda of the president and say these things are important, but also the guy who is it, he's out to lunch. That seems reasonable. I felt like Michael Savage. When Alex Jones, who's kind of a wild man, and Michael Savage, who also is a wild man, are the most sane voices, do you know how screwed up this country must be? Or maybe they've always been the ones who've kind of just done what they've done. They've just said the thing that they thought was true at the time when they thought it was true.
One. We can be anything we want to be. So just try to be the good one and the wise one. And let us all pray for peace. Nobody wanted this war. Everybody wants this war to end as quickly as possible. Anyone with a conscience knows this war makes no sense. Nobody's buying the big lie. That's not to say Iran is a good nation. We know the mullahs are crazy and they live in the 7th century. But maybe war isn't the answer. I've heard the other side of it. We all saw The Godfather. Sorry, I have very bad allergies. We all saw The Godfather. When Fat Clemenza takes Michael down in the basement in that house in Brooklyn or Staten Island, wherever it was, and they're shooting the gun. And Fat Clemenza, as it was written, says, we should have stopped Hitler at Munich. Remember that line? Puzo was a great writer. Unless Coppola wrote it into the screenplay. I don't know, a great line. He says, seemed like we should have stopped Hitler at Munich. Then we would have avoided World War II. So there is a thought in this land that we should stop the mullahs now before they grow too strong and they can't be stopped. I can understand that, but I don't buy it. A year ago, we were told their nuclear capacity was completely destroyed. And now they've been bombed for a couple of weeks. What's left for them to fight with? Well, they have missiles. They could put a nuclear tip on one of them, I suppose. They could get it from China or Russia. Do you think by bombing them, they're going to stop? We're liable to drag China and Russia into the war. Did you ever think about that? What is to prevent Russia from finally saying, you know what? I'm going to join Iran in this war now. And Russia says they're going to send Russian troops into Iran to defend the Iranian soil. What if they do that? Is that what you want? Are you that stupid to think you want a war with Russia now? Well, we've depleted some of our most important weapons, many of which we gave to Zelensky in Ukraine for 3 years to kill Russians. You think Putin doesn't remember how many of his boys were killed? You think the Ukrainians don't know how many of theirs disappeared? Over 1 million men.
Isn't that something? It's just interesting to listen to people have a little bit of sense, just zoom out just a little ways. And then I've got this great clip. My buddy shared this with me the other day. Here's the I'm not going to pay attention to the mask. The mask must be real. Everything is great. Everything Donald Trump said is amazing. It's nice to hear some voices go, come on, guys. Like, I can accept that your argument exists. I just don't agree with it. Or you could have this guy where you just believe whatever is being fed. You just like a slop consumer. If it rolls down the river, then that's what you consume. Watch this guy. Ready? At this point, not the 39% of all GOP, but like the people that showed up at CPAC that were psyched about whatever gross stuff was being sent on there, telling you that we need to go and fight for other countries and that America first means not America first or whatever other weird stuff they were saying. How about this guy?
Like he did everything he said he was going to do, and he did it. What are some of those things that he said and then he did? Just one thing. One thing he said and then he did.
He caught me off guard there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Isn't that exactly the stuff we saw the Kamala Harris supporters do? Where you'd go, hey, what are your favorite promises and what do you think that they're going to result in? And they would go, I just feel like she's probably the best because that's what I believe. Like my people, my cultish tribal instinct is that I was told she's the best, so she's the best. I don't want to be people like that. I don't want to be around people. I don't want to even have, like, this is why I don't think democracy is great. That dude has a vote that is as powerful as my vote. What are the things you like most about the guy? No idea. What are the things that he promised? No idea. I mean, he did them all. Did he though? Here they are on the screen again. We keep doing it. No idea. I can't name a single one of these 20 promises. How many of you, having watched this program, can name probably like a dozen of these things off the top of your head? Certainly the most important ones: weaponization of government, protection of the Bill of Rights, make America affordable again, stop the migrant invasion, largest deportation operation. I'm just going off the top of my head. Right? There's a bunch of them. They're not that hard. They weren't a difficult agenda. He said them over and over again. That was the entire point of 2024. That's why people got excited. They were like, yeah, I'm going to cross the line. Let's focus on America just for a few minutes. That'd be great. I'd love it. Oh, you're not going to do that? Are you going to do something else? I'm no longer GOP aligned independent. I'm bacon cheeseburger. I'm just a person who's trying to be able to afford life in a country that has basically decided that they don't care what I think. They're going to print more reserve currency. They're going to make an enemy out of Tom Massey. They're going to put Dan Bongino in the FBI director chair or co-deputy director chair, only for him to not do any of the things he said, claim that Epstein killed himself. I've seen the file. And then roll out and save America by doing his podcast where he yells and gives you slop to consume. And you're going to keep cheering because you're so stupid you can't actually evaluate anything critically. You can't do a single thing. He's going to call Joe Kent, someone with 30 years of blood, sweat, and tears who buried a spouse in the war on terror. He's going to call him a disingenuous bad actor. Freaking crazy. It's a freaking crazy time to be alive. But the upside is that mask comes off. They take it off and they show you exactly who they are. So then you just have to decide. Will I still uncritically accept lies because I like the personality so much? You're a specific type of person. You're probably not in this audience. Or are you someone who says, I'm willing to adjust my opinion when new information is available? And I'm willing to critically evaluate my own thoughts like I have for the rest of my entire life. If you still think, how many of you are still in the same category of where you were when you were a 5-year-old? What do you want to do with your life? Oh, I want to be an astronaut. And then you're like, oh, I'm not really that good at math. Maybe engineering isn't for me. I'm not prepared to become a pilot in the Air Force or in the Navy. I would guess that being an astronaut is not in my future. I'm going to go do something else. I'm much better at running a lawn mowing company and turning that into a multi-million-dollar business, perhaps. Is it just as valuable and important? Probably. Pays all the taxes. There is no NASA without the guy who makes a multi-million-dollar lawn mowing company. Which one are you? Are you the person that still believes in childish dreams and can never, ever look at yourself critically and go, I had information, new information has been presented, and now I have to challenge my previous assumptions? Or are you the kind of person that just says, yeah, whatever I think, whenever I think it is good? Or are you the person who has absolutely no principles and just say, I outsource my opinion to fill in the blank person? Pete Hegseth speaks for me. Donald Trump speaks for me. Alex Jones speaks for me. Whatever these people say, that's what my opinion is. I'm a malleable object. Because that's what democracy looks like, by the way. It's the malleable objects that go out there and make all of the big decisions that we all have to deal with. Why? Oh my God, I feel like we have flat earth people that are sitting in our chat right now and they're putting the word astronauts in air quotes. Guys, what are you doing? You guys are killing me. All right, let's a couple other things here and then we're going to wrap this thing up. And then I have a very long, sort of sad, funny, kind of like realistic bad news scenario about how evil all this stuff is, about taking off the mask. It's a mask off discussion for the palate cleanse, but I think it's still at least charming and interesting. Donald Trump was asked the other day about birthright citizenship. This is one of those other things that should make sense. Anybody reasonable would look at this. If you wanted to have the most reasonable perspective on birthright citizenship, it goes like this. When America was founded, we had unlimited land and opportunity. By the way, there's still unlimited amounts of land that are unpopulated in the United States. We had unlimited land. We had no social safety net. And this is quoting Ben Shapiro, who I used to listen to, and I think this was a great point he made, that in America, the bargain is that the opportunity was guaranteed, but success was not. And so you could come to this country and you could try to do something special with your life and you might die trying. And that was the bargain. You got a shot. It may not be the most fair shot, but it's a free shot. And if you were to succeed, then you can do that. We didn't have classes. We didn't have a nobility. Nothing was like artificially put in place that was obvious or statutory that was keeping a lot of people from being out there to take a shot at the success story. And every success story in America that we celebrate is all that, right? And then today, after 120 or 130 years, central banking, centralizing power and money, taking democratization of places that shouldn't be democratized, and the New Deal options where you made Americans like with all these different safety nets and government apparatus that were supposed to carry you forward. Now we have a thing where we cannot have unlimited immigration, where we have to keep track of it. Because being a citizen in America also means that like we also won't let you fail in some ways. There's homeless shelters, there's all kinds of money and all this other kind of nonsense. So we should reevaluate whether or not being born in this country equals you get to be a citizen of this country. Very simply. What citizenship meant, birthright citizenship, when the Supreme Court last decided on it in 1898, there's a New York Times story about that. I'll put that in the notes if you guys want to read it. What they decided in 1898 is no longer the case in America in 2026. It's not the same America. The system is not the same. It's been radically transformed. And so it's worth a reevaluation. Donald Trump said his birthright citizenship EO, which, by the way, a lot of people understood, and it makes sense to most people that listen to it, that are being honest, they would go, yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's going to be decided by the Supreme Court. The problem is a lot of this stuff goes to the court system, and that is the last check of the status quo to make sure that things stay the same as they always have. Here's Donald Trump saying he's going to go and watch the oral arguments that will happen today.
And the Supreme Court tomorrow is going to hear arguments about your executive order trying to get rid of birthright citizenship.
And I'm going.
You're going to go to the Supreme Court
I think
tomorrow?
so. I do believe.
And just sit there and listen.
Because I have listened to this argument for so long, and this is not about Chinese billionaires or billionaires from other countries who all of a sudden have 75 children or 59 children in one case or 10 children becoming American citizens. This was about slaves. And if you take a look, slaves, we're talking about slaves from the Civil War. And if you take a look at when it was filed, all of this legislation, all of this, everything having to do with birthright citizenship, it was at the end of the Civil War. The reason was it had to do with the babies of slaves and the protection of the babies of slaves. It didn't have to do with the protection of multi-millionaires and billionaires wanting to have their children get an American citizenship. It is the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's been so badly handled by legal people over the years. If you look at the original birthright citizenship papers, they all happened right after the Civil War. The reason was it had to do with the babies of slaves. And hopefully it's going to say, because our country is being scammed, we're getting all...
I 100% agree with everything he said. I wish he would have stopped his answer whenever he did, because he just keeps going on and repeating himself because he's getting to the point where he's so old he doesn't know that he already answered the question sufficiently, exhaustively. Alex Jones is right on that. Donald Trump is right on that answer. The answer is the time period matters. The context when it was written matters. The originalists, I hope, will look at this and understand that that actually all plays into effect there. ABC News doesn't like it. Donald Trump, what do they say? Supreme Court hears Trump's bid to end birthright citizenship. It was never meant for the people who come here and create an industry out of sending people into this country to be born in this country, to take advantage of all of the opportunities in this country and the safety net that was never meant for this country. He's spot on. Again, we want more of that Donald Trump. Guess what that is? That's a domestic agenda item. That's where it ought to be. You shouldn't be able to come over here and drop a baby in, sneak over our border, have a baby on vacation, and that becomes an American. That's absurd. It wouldn't happen for diplomats, and it doesn't. So why on earth does it happen for someone who creeps over the Rio Grande or sneaks in from Canada or flies in from China and then hides in a house for a couple of months, overstays their visa? They're already in criminal violation of this law, or civil violation, doesn't even matter, depending on the way that it's actually charged. You are now in violation of U.S. law and you can have a U.S. baby? What the freaking hell are we talking about? For more than a century, American birth certificate has been the key to unlocking the benefits of American citizenship. For more than a century, but not for all of American time, and not for all the time that this country had it. And by the way, the benefits of American citizenship in 1898 or in 1903, they weren't that great. That's pre-World War I, World War II. It's pre-Great Society. It's pre-New Deal. It's pre-centralization of our funds and focusing in on Washington, D.C., which I think has been the death knell of this country. Most parents of newborns on U.S. soil simply have to provide proof, birth from a hospital, to apply for Social Security numbers and passports and early life benefits for their children. And into adulthood, the birth certificate has been universally recognized as proof of citizenship for voter registration, employment, home loans, and military service. Yeah, that's the problem. They're highlighting the problem. In a landmark case, which was going to be argued today, will determine whether the long-standing cultural norm and legal precedent will continue or whether sweeping bureaucratic changes could impact millions will take place soon. God willing, that's the case. But let me show you a series of other things that are going on that are also being stopped. A federal judge is stopping construction of Trump's White House ballroom. You have that story. I'll put that in there. The Supreme Court just ruled on whether or not you can actually ban conversion therapy. They said you cannot. I actually don't know what I think about that, because even though I'm not a fan of states banning anything like that, it should be kind of a states' rights issue. And I'm not certain that it has anything to do with the First Amendment per se. It's an 8-1 decision. Their argument is that you can't do so under the grounds of freedom of speech. As far as I read it originally, a lot of the things, like, how do you do that and then still have gun laws? How do you say that speech can't be abridged and you cannot pass a law that stops someone from doing conversion therapy, but you can create a law that says how big a magazine or a firearm can be or what firearms can be sold in your state? How do you square those things? And again, this status quo means it's like the approved freedoms are maintained and the non-approved ones are not. Here's another story from NBC News on the exact same story. And then this is the last one here. There's like 5 stories about judges making orders that are, once again, this has been the story of the Trump administration 1.0 and 2.0. And maybe that's why they have an overseas thing, because they have unilateral actions on that. A federal judge in Boston directed the Trump administration to restore the legal status of migrants, aka illegal immigrants, allowed in the United States under the now defunct Biden administration program for asylum seekers who arrived at the southern border. This is the same bullshit that I saw with DACA, where they said, oh, I'm just going to unilaterally make a decision as president, and then they're going to be able to defend it because it's been done so far. U.S. District Court Judge Allison Burroughs voided the Trump administration's decision to end the immigration parole status of migrants who entered the country under the Biden-era CBP home policy, finding that the move violated procedures outlined in U.S. law. Nasty. Just gross. That's a mask off, too. And the mask off is that the federal judiciary tends to be the thing that defends the status quo when everything else fails. It is the fail-safe status quo solution. When in doubt, take it to a judge who agrees with you, and they'll solve your problems. Just because you had a majority of people or a majority of representatives or you were able to pass a law doesn't mean that it's going to be able to go into effect. Just because you got the White House doesn't mean that the policies that the previous one did can be undone. They wrote it with a pen. You can't undo it with a pen because now we have all these different decisions and it's going to affect people. It's really nasty. It's super gross to watch. So anyway, as we see these people take the mask off, as people go out there and pick their cults, I hope you guys continue to stay in the cult that says, I just need evidence and I'm willing to hear it. And if you got it, great. That'll help me. I'll make up my mind based on what I see in front of me. Folks, if you enjoyed the program, like it on Rumble, like it on YouTube, share it with a friend. I don't know what happened on YouTube, but I did see that it actually opened up 2 different shows with the same exact name. So I'm glad you guys all made it over there. I think our YouTube numbers were pretty decent today. So you guys ended up finding where you needed to be. Like the show, subscribe on the various places that you can. That's how you support us for free. Costs you nothing to do it. Follow over on KyleSeraphinShow.com, over on Spotify. If you guys need a backup, find it on any of the audio programs. But Spotify is the one where you get the video too. And so maybe there's some things you want to see. Maybe you don't want to see Kristi Noem's husband wearing something horrific, like a shirt, supporting her new job at the Shield of the Americas. Yes, this is AI, but no, that's actually an adaptation from the real picture. How disturbing. There you go. We're going to do a long form, sort of black pilling version of the palate cleanse, but I do think it's kind of funny while I'm leaving this on the screen here to terrify you guys. This is an AI song making a bunch of connections that this is the same as it's ever been. And it's relatively recent. They talked about the last 100 years or so being the issue. In the last 100 years, the term national security, which has maybe some additional effect on today's discussion when we're talking about the former head of the Department of Homeland Security had a husband with a secret life and a sexual perversion or fetish. Maybe this hits a little bit differently. There's a lot more to it than this. And the recent stories, which have to do with Bryan Cole Jr. and myself and Steve Baker and some others who've gone head to head against this apparatus. Joe Kent is experiencing it. Some of you guys are seeing that a lot of folks are defending the status quo. Maybe this will give you just a little bit of context. It's also a musical thing. It gets a little bit old, but I'm actually going to play the whole thing. It's a couple minutes long. So enjoy this musical rendition of the history of some connections that are interesting about the CIA.
I'm curious about the CIA because most people think it exists to protect national security, and that gets said a lot. But I wanted to know who's security exactly and whose nation. During World War II, the U.S. built its first spy agency, the OSS, now it's soldiers with Wall Street lawyers, and they built it around one idea, that what's good for American businesses is good for America. And when the war ended, Congress shut it down. 2 years later, the same guy started the CIA, same people, same mindset, new name, secret budget. And this time, almost nobody watching them. After the war, Truman said, don't bring over Nazis who were criminals, and the CIA brought over 1,600 of them anyway, scrubbed their records, gave them new identities and American careers. They called it Operation Paperclip, the most famous being Werner von Braun, who ran the Nazi rocket program, using concentration camp prisoners as slave labor, and then became the father of NASA and got a crater on the moon named after him, which does seem like a successful rebranding. Alan Dulles ran the CIA from 1953 to 1961. His brother was running the State Department at the same time, and both of them had personal financial ties to the United Fruit Company. So when Guatemala's elected president tried to give farmland back to his people, and that United Fruit claimed the CIA did a coup, 200,000 Guatemalans died in the civil war that followed, and United Fruit kept its land because apparently that's what we were calling national security. When McCarthy tried to look into the CIA, Dulles broke into his Senate office, fed him fake intelligence, and ran the story through Operation Mockingbird, a network of journalists on the CIA payroll at 25 American newspapers and wire agencies. And when the press still got too close, they just wiretapped the journalists directly 24 hours a day and kept a list of every senator, every White House aide, every Pentagon source who was still talking. That same playbook ran in Iran, Chile, Nicaragua, the Congo, and Afghanistan. Elected leaders removed friendly dictators, installed rebel armies secretly funded. And when Congress specifically voted to cut off contra funding in Nicaragua, the CIA sold weapons to Iran through Israel, took the money, funded them anyway, and flew drugs back on the same planes, which is efficient, I guess. From the very beginning, the CIA had a secret arrangement with Israeli intelligence, run for 20 years by one man, James Angleton, who was all supposed to be the person protecting the U.S. from foreign spies. And when he died, the heads of Mossad and Shin Bet gathered in secret in Jerusalem to lay a memorial stone that reads in memory of a dear friend. When any of this got looked into, the same people kept coming up. The CIA planned the Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba, told Kennedy it would work, it didn't, and Kennedy fired Dulles for it, then told the people around him he wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the winds. He was assassinated the following year. Lyndon Johnson appointed the man Kenny fired to lead the official investigation into Kennedy's assassination. George H.W. Bush ran the CIA, then helped run Iran-Contra as vice president. Then as president, everyone off the hook. His attorney general, William Barr, told him to pardon them all. The same Barr who used to work at the CIA, whose father, Donald Barr, served in the OSS, hired a college dropout named Jeffrey Epstein to teach at an elite school without a degree, and wrote a science fiction novel about elites keeping humans as sex slaves. And William Barr came back as attorney general the year Jeffrey Epstein died in a federal jail with the cameras broken and the guards asleep. So just to recap, Wall Street lawyers built a spy agency and called it National Security. 1600 Nazis got new American careers and called it science. The CIA ran a media network to control what Americans believed and called it tribalism. They did coups on 4 continents for corporate interests and called it democracy. They ran weapons and drugs when Congress said no and called it off the books. And the same families have been running and covering for it for 70 years and calling it public service. And now the Epstein files are out and half of them are still missing or heavily redacted, and they're calling it compliance. Oversight is being dismantled and they're calling it efficiency. And the people asking questions are being called the threat. I'm just curious how many of the things we were taught to believe were written by the same agency we've been funding our entire lives without being allowed to know what it does. Know what it does. Know what it does.
Yikes, huh? So there you go. There's a lot more to it than that, obviously, and some of those gloss over some points that probably need a little bit more glue to put it together. But that's a catchy way of hearing some things that'll make you feel kind of awful. Mask off. I look forward to seeing you guys. I hope you guys go check out the Megyn Kelly show. It's probably about to start running. I don't know what time they run, but I think it runs today. I think it's at noon. There's a lot more to be put together. And in the microcosm of what's been going on, which they kind of touched on some current events, there's a lot more current events that are relevant, including what we brought up in the Dan Bongino tweet, which I think is all going to be laid bare in a few minutes. You guys are going to find out some of the calls that were made from the highest levels of our government, trying to stop things about what I think was the coup that took over this country in 2020 and 2021. And it needs your ears, and it needs to be shared. So you guys can also take off your mask and you can share it with your friends. Let them know this is not okay. Truth, no matter what. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.